I kind of wanted to start out our webinar today with a little intro to Reviewer and kind of why we're hosting this webinar today, and then roll into our topic. So, with that being said, Reviewer is an applicant management platform. So, essentially, any sort of program where you're intaking any kind of application and it's going through a review, judging, scoring process, we can run it within Reviewer. So, we run everything from grants scholarships, award programs, different competitions, call for speakers, call for abstracts, and all sorts of corporate giving programs. So, over the years, between grants and scholarships, we have run thousands of different programs, and we wanted to compile a lot of the things that we see helping programs succeed and set themselves up for success, and then some areas where their program might fail or they might have some gaps. And we have kind of, yeah, compiled some ways to fill those gaps. So, my name is Callie. I run all of our marketing here at Reviewer. And my role in this webinar is just to kind of give you guys a rundown of what we are kind of looking at in the corporate giving space right now. And then I have Hallie here from my team, and I will let her introduce herself.
Yeah, I'm Hallie. I am a part of the customer success team here at Reviewer. So what I do is I work with our clients one-on-one from the time they are onboarded into Reviewer. I help them kind of get their programs running, get them started with submissions throughout the evaluation process, help their scoring, and then help them kind of close everything up and then get ready for next year's event. So I'm with them from the time they come to Reviewer until they are done for the season and ready to get ready for next. And so I kind of can understand what all of our clients are dealing with, what their issues are, what they're looking for coming from past platforms, whether it's Google Forms, Jotform, whatever platform they're using currently or previously, whether that is also PDFs, emails, kind of really simple things like that, their frustrations, what they're looking for, and kind of what needs to change in order for them to see success within their program. So I kind of been able to see the inside view of seeing kind of what really has helped them move forward in their scholarships and grant programs.
All right, awesome. So I did want to note as we're going along here, the chat is open, so feel free to drop your questions as we're going along, and we will go ahead and get started here. So I kind of wanted to start out with kind of just outlining the reality and the common problem and theme that we are seeing within kind of corporate giving programs right now. And that is overall manual processes. This is the common problem. We see everything from, handling programs through spreadsheets, Google Forms, Jot Forms, different shared drives and folders, emails going back and forth, different scorecards, and just overall kind of piecing everything together manually. And we have seen everything from even pen and paper applications or things being sent by mail, stuff like that. So, kind of the overall theme for the problems that we're seeing are just manual processes in general. And kind of what we want to move towards is an all-in-one process. So not having to take data and things in and out of different tools and kind of hack them all together to do what we want, to kind of lower that barrier for you guys as admin, and kind of relieve a little bit of the process off of you guys as you're running these programs. So, to roll you through our agenda today, first we are going to start out talking about the real cost of disconnected tools, and what that may be costing your organization and your program in general. And then the second one is the life cycle gap most programs don't see. So, we are kind of pulling out the pieces that we may not notice within our programs or that kind of fall through the cracks and can cause issues. And then in our little third pillar here, we are going to go over a framework. And within that framework, we will kind of address a lot of the issues or barriers or gaps that we talk about in the first two pieces. And then kind of give you some tips and tricks and things you can do within your program to kind of combat some of those issues.
Yeah, so with that, we will go ahead and get started on our first pillar, which is the real cost of disconnected tools. So we're going to take a look at some of the things that you are doing right now that are actually adding up a lot of costs that you probably don't realize. Okay, so the first thing that we'll talk about is the time drain. So this is going to be a lot more directed towards you as admin. Something that we realize and recognize a lot at Reviewer and kind of have that understanding component is that most of you admin who are running these scholarship grant programs, whatever they might be, this is not your main job. And so you are spending extra time throughout your day, throughout your week, throughout your weekend, trying to pull together and run this program, and it's just a lot of extra time, and it doesn't necessarily have to be. So you're putting in all this extra time and then you're not getting the numbers, the retention rates, the outcome that you are wanting to have from these programs. And so that's really, really frustrating. And so you need something that is less manual, less complicated, more intuitive, and overall a better experience for you as admin. Second thing with that is that the application drop off, and this kind of runs in hand with the manual side of things. It's not only the initial setup of of the time that it's taking you to run these programs that's taking so long, but once your applications are coming in, you as admin are having to kind of string things together, help them work, kind of help and communicate with your applicants. And so with that comes kind of a frustrating process with the actual application. Most people who are coming to a reviewer have had no experience where their applicants can start their application, save and log out, come back in. They get lots and lots of extra questions that really aren't necessary throughout their application process. And overall just have kind of a lot of frustrating notes about the applicant experience overall and how they are running it currently. And so it's also really important that when we think about running these events and what we want to change and make better and everything kind of along those lines, it's important to remember that we are running these grants and scholarships for the applicants. It obviously has a lot more internal value and other kind of things along that view, but at the end of the day, it is for those applicants. So when they don't have a good experience, that spreads word of mouth. Your numbers decrease, you don't have as many people actually submitting, which is not a great stat. And so just kind of acknowledging all of the issues with having not an intuitive form that leads to having an applicant drop off. The third thing is reviewer fatigue. So similar to how this is probably not your main job running these events, it also is more than likely not your reviewer's same job to come in and score your applications. Most of the reviewers, judges that we have come into the system are volunteers of some kind. So they are donating their time into coming in and evaluating these submissions that you've given them. And so it's really important that we give them a good experience so that they continue to come back and donate their time in your event, evaluating, reviewing. Maybe they take on a different role in the next year. But that great experience from an outside person also helps generate kind of that buzz. It spreads by word of mouth. They had a great experience and kind of encourages more people to go and dip their toes in the water. The next thing is no visibility. So this kind of ties in all three of the last things that we have just talked about. Throughout your application process, your evaluation process, setting up, you have no visibility of where you're at within your process. So with that, as you kind of are getting things set up and ready to go, you don't really have any idea, checklist, anything of how far along are you in this project? How much do you have left before you can go live? Once you're intaking those applications, it's how many applicants have submitted, how many are have started and have not finished, how many have just left it and have not came back in X amount of time. So there's no visibility on that, which is really, really valuable to know, especially during that process. So you can kind of send those reminders and help get those numbers up to where people are actually submitting. And then also for the reviewers, when you are in that kind of set evaluation review period, you need to be able to have clear, easy visibility of where all of your evaluators are at in their process and their number of submissions, so that you can kind of keep track of that and make sure that everything gets done in time. Next thing, we just kind of talked a lot about how all of that is a lot of work, honestly, and you're gonna have to do that from year to year, from start to finish, which is super, super frustrating, where you have kind of your slight memory to go off of from one year's events to the next, but not just a direct kind of copy, which is super frustrating. And again, that contributes back to that time drain. And then the last thing is compliance risk, especially now as we are kind of getting into more technology. We are being more financially transparent, things like that. You're going to be digging for that financial information from them, from their parents, from their company, tax forms, anything kind of along those lines, or even just more personal information not related to that banking side of things. That's a huge compliant risk when you are having them send files over email, and then that email is being forwarded, and then it's being stuck into a Google folder. Really not safe or secure for those applicants, which in turn is not fair to those applicants and is not a great experience, because when one of those files gets lost, what do you do about that? And then the last thing to kind of put all of those together is to talk about the actual hidden costs of disconnected tools. So I'm guessing that you probably don't think about all those little kind of things that are all adding up. And while it might not be direct dollar signs that are going out of your bank account, it's your time. It's your application submission rate. It is the time that it's taking to submit and review these applications. And then at the end of all of that, what results are you really seeing? What can you push out to your company, to the public, and say, this is the difference that we made?
All right, so now we are going to move on to our second pillar, which is the life cycle gap most programs don't see. So we kind of want to start out by looking at your program as a whole, the entire life cycle. So that starts with your application intake, then moves on to your reviewing and scoring, and then to your selection and awards. Typically, after distribution of the awards, that's kind of where we see programs stop. But we want to be able to look at this life cycle all the way through. So that continues us into disbursement, like I said, and then compliance. And then would move into recipient tracking. So that is actually having your applicants, or not your applicants, your winners come back in, be able to upload information for you, be able to turn in any kind of documentation that you might need for either their scholarship or grant. And just open that line of communication with them. And then also maybe some surveys. How has this impacted them? That type of thing, so that you can then move into your last piece, which is impact and reporting. That is when this program is all said and done, kind of being able to be able to justify it to your organization. You have, the impact it's had on your winners, on your community, on your scholars, and being able to prove that to your organization and kind of show them how your program is doing better year to year and growing. So, some kind of spots where we see programs start to fall apart are some things we often see missed. Is number one, no central command center. So that is essentially at any time in your program, you don't have anywhere altogether where you can go to check on judges. You can check on how many submissions you have, how many people started submitting, but haven't completed it yet, how many judges have started judging, that sort of thing. Just being able to tell where you're at in your process the entire time. Another kind of area we see programs start to fall through is the applicant recommender gap. So that's being able to manage applicants. If you have any references, recommenders, stuff like that automatically. We see a lot of that happening through separate forms or links or emails or just things kind of going everywhere. And you're doing a lot of that manually on your end. So if that is something your program offers, having the capability for that automation, without that, we see lots of programs kind of lack in that area. And then the third one is review processes that don't hold up. So this is in terms of bias and just overall equality for all applicants that apply. So sometimes we see things like no standard rubric across all of your judges, conflict of interest, things like that. Not being able to randomize your judges to applicants, having to do all of that manually. No normalization. So what normalization is essentially if I am a really hard Score, and Hallie is a really easy score. Obviously, as an applicant, you are going to want Hallie to score you, not me. So not having a way to kind of combat that and even those numbers can make it super difficult to remain fair all the way across the board. And we can kind of show you what that looks like in a second. But next we have disbursement tracking gaps. So this is after you have handed out um, your winners, being able to go back in and communicate with them. That kind of moves into my next one, which is communication. So automatically, having reminders go out to them, reminding them of things that they need to turn in if they need any proof of things, anything like that after they have already received their award. And then the last one is impact you can't prove. So that unfortunately is where we see lots of programs fail. When your program is done, in your organization, they want a report of how this program went. And just being able to kind of report on, oh, we had this many applicants this year and this many last year, and kind of stopping there, and not being able to go beyond that in tracking.
Yeah, so then the third thing is a practical framework for what you need. So this is kind of putting everything that we have just discussed and kind of giving a solution. These are the things that we have found have really helped out with a lot of these problems that we are facing. So really quickly before I kind of show you what some of those things look like, we'll talk through a few of the things. So the first thing is going to be the applications and intake. So creating an intuitive workflow for our applicants and any outsiders that we have kind of invited into the form. For scholarships specifically, we do a lot of recommendation letters. For grants, we do impact reports if you have to invite someone in and submit something for you, anything like that. So making it a really intuitive and friendly process for those applicants where they create an account and everything is in that one place. It's really important, not only for admin and reviewers, but also for the applicant that everything is in one place and they have that really great visibility over it. Second thing is operational command center. So this is really directed towards you all admin, where you can see everything at once. You can see how many submissions you have. You can see the status of each submission. If you have a supplemental event where that is your letter of recommendations or transcript uploads, you can see the status of those. You also can see any custom dates and deadlines. Really a lot of quick visibility that is super important for an admin, just so you can kind of have that easy, answer when someone asks, how many submissions do we have so far? How many days are left? And kind of go from there. Reviewing and scoring, this is arguably one of the most important parts of your programs that you are running, is deciding who is going to win these scholarships and who is going to win these grants. And so it's really important that we have equal rubrics. So everyone is using the same scoring, same evaluation form, and that they are designed that match your program's needs. Make sure that we don't have any conflict of interest. We want to avoid that submitter and reviewer bias. As well as workload balancing. We want to make sure that our reviewers are all having around that same number of submissions. So that means that they are able to put their best foot forward and do their best evaluation. And then the last thing is being able to keep track of our evaluators' progress, but they also have the ability to keep track of how many they've started, how many they have left, and that kind of thing. Last couple of things, disbursement and compliance. So you have that built-in kind of tracking. You can keep track of the status of your submissions, the kind of what their next steps are, and then everything that they are inserting in there regarding that disbursement and kind of follow-up is all really secure, which is super important, especially when we're giving out thousands of dollars in scholarships and grants. Communication and notifications. This is a really big one that I think a lot of admin don't realize the burden it's causing with their kind of past practices, is the communication. We set up automatic emails at reviewers, so you don't have to worry about that follow-up if it's an incomplete submission or if they submitted and they get that kind of verification that they have received, they have submitted in full their submission, they're good to go. As well as the opportunity to bulk email applicants. If there's a specific group that needs to go back in or they need to change something, you have that ability through a reviewer and it is not tied to your own kind of personal email that kind of thing. And then the last thing is recipient tracking and renewals. So keep track of your recipient's progress. Give them the ability to come back in and renew those applications. Again, kind of going back to having everything in one place, but it's really important that we kind of keep everything organized and utilize those tools. So with that, I am going to show you guys what that application process looks like. And then we'll also kind of go through some of the admin management and then that reviewer process. So you guys can kind of get a quick look at what everything is looking like in reviewer, kind of solving some of those issues we discussed. So kind of talking quickly about that account creation process that we talked about. They create an account one time, and then not only for your event and reviewer, but for any other event, maybe you aren't running, or if you do a different event next year or a different program, that one account has access to everything that they apply for. I'm going to skip through to an example that better fits us. So for example, if this is a scholarship, this is kind of that information page. We can complete an eligibility and then also scholarship matching. Same with grants, kind of similar setup. So that first page of the application is going to be ensuring that they are at least eligible for one of the scholarships or grants that you're offering. And then from there, based on those answers, we can match them to the scholarships that they do qualify for, which makes it easy on your end because you don't have to kind of double check and make sure that those applicants truly can apply for each one. And then it makes it a great experience for the applicant because they don't have to weed through, search for everything, and figure out what all they can apply for. A couple of things just to kind of look at as we are looking at the application form. I just want to scroll down here to the file upload. Everything is secure in file, and we allow over 130 file types, which is super, super handy when we're having all different kinds of submissions come in. And then text questions, kind of the whole 9 yards. And then for letter of recommendations, how this works is they will insert their recommenders information. And then on submit, that email will be sent out to those recommenders. The recommenders will receive that email, click a link, and then be dropped straight into a form where they can either rate or upload. We try and really encourage this rating system just because some recommenders might be better letter writers than others. And so that kind of evens out that playing field for those applicants if we do a rating system as well. The next thing I kind of wanted to show you guys is that admin dashboard. And so this is kind of the tool that you would use, the page that you would go to when you just want a quick view of your program. So how many days are left? How many total entries do we have? What are the status of each of those entries? We are big on statuses at reviewers. It is a great way to keep your submissions organized. And it's just something you can kind of look at quickly and say, okay, I can tell that these 23 have submitted successfully, but I have 8 in incomplete. That means that they need to be sent that automatic reminder email, or they have been sent it, that they need to log back in and finish their submission. You have access to the supplemental form, so that letter of recommendation event, and then also any custom dates and deadlines. So really great quick view, but then also understanding that you as admin want to take a deeper dive into these submissions and get kind of a better view of what you're working with. So down here, all of your submissions that have been submitted or started in your event will be listed here. And you have a little bit of freedom here about what all is listed, from submission name, groups, your submitters, your organization name, kind of everything along those lines. And then you also have the ability to view all of your submissions and edit if needed. And so you can see their entire submission, make sure everything is looking good. But then there's also a couple of features over here where you can add questions and comments, and you can communicate with the submitter. You also can add notes that display to the reviewers as they're judging, which can be helpful. The attachments tab, if you as an admin have to come in and add an attachment for them, you can do that. Also, any attachments that are uploaded within the actual submission form will be displayed there. You can view them, see what they look like. And then supplemental forms is where any of those supplemental forms, such as reference, transcripts, etc., will be listed. Another thing that we're big on is grouping. So every submission has to be in a group before it is reviewed in reviewer. And so whether that means that we auto group based on what scholarship or grants that they are applying for, or sometimes they're all just in one big pool, which is great either way. But then we also have some flexibility over how you are setting up those judging assignments. And so the first thing that we'll talk about is the automatic assignment, where you set a minimum and maximum number of times a submission should be reviewed. And then based on that, the system system randomly assigns all of your submissions to all of your reviewers and you're done. Second option is to assign all, which means all submissions will be assigned to all reviewers in the group. So each submission will be reviewed by the amount of times of reviewers you have in that group. And then the last option is to manual assign. This is a great tool to use if you know that you have bias in one of your groups and you need to be the one to kind of match up those assignments. Perfect. And then the last kind of thing I wanted to touch on is the evaluation experience. So your reviewers will receive an invite email once you trigger that. They will log in and then they will be taken to their evaluator portal where they will see all submissions that they are to score. If this person were to have already scored, you can see that the score they gave each submission is listed there already. If you want to redact any kind of data, whether that be name, contact information, address, anything kind of like that, we can do that for you as well. And then just to kind of take a peek at what that evaluation experience looks like for those reviewers, we have the submission form on the left, and then we have the score sheet on the right. So they can scroll and answer kind of in the order of the questions, have visibility over things. They also have access to all of the attachments, any notes that were left by admin, have access to everything there. This is not the best example because we really do try and push away from the 1 to 10, 1 to 5, the numerical scoring. We see that it kind of has a more even playing field, a better fairness level if we do more of an emotional response. So a exceeds expectations as your top point and a does not meet expectations as your lowest point. So just something else to kind of think about. And then this is the last thing I actually wanted to show you is once you are kind of done with that evaluation process, everyone has been evaluated, you're good to go. You as an admin will probably want to kind of look over some things before you say you are good to go and announce winners. So you can do that in this view results page in the manage submissions. This is a great view to see if there's any outliers. So for example, down here, we have 30s to 20 scores, and then we have a 12. So you have the opportunity to take a look at the evaluation, see if there maybe was a misclick, but then also reach out to the evaluator and say, hey, is this the score you wanted to give? If so, can you please verify and explain why? Because it is an outlier score. And then last thing is this normalization report, as Callie was talking about earlier. This is a report that can be generated for you in Reviewer. Over here on the left, we have all of our submissions, and then up here on the top, we have all of our judges, and then the corresponding cells are the scores that each judge gave these submissions. As we move forward, we can see the average score that each judge gave every submission. And then from there, just to kind of point something out, as we can see that tough versus easy score. We have an average score of almost a 24 and then an average score of a 34. That is a huge difference. Obviously not a even playing field there. And so what we do with all of these average scores is we turn them all into a 1. So each average score is turned into a 1. So then anything above that average score is kind of weighted that way. So everyone kind of has that fresh, even playing field. And then from there, you can see who truly was across the board the best applicant and not who just necessarily received the best score. That's all I have demo-wise, but Callie can move forward.
Okay, we will hop back into the slides here. All right. So next, we just have some important questions to ask just before you commit to a new program or a new tool or platform or something like that. And there are also good questions to ask yourself about your current platform. So just a couple of the standout questions. I'll just roll over them really quick. Is number one, does it cover your full life cycle of your program? Is everything included, or are you going to have to go to other tools in order to run your program? Another good one is what is happening to the applicant's data after it is being taken out of or put into whatever tool platform you're using. This is super important if we're using things like Google Forms or Jot Forms. If you are collecting any sensitive data on those applicants and you are putting them into Google Forms, at that point, you can't be sure where that data is going. So when you're looking to take on another tool, that's a great thing to ask about. And then some overall just about the partnership with whichever tool or platform you might be looking to use. So kind of one of the bigger questions is what does ongoing support look like? So are you talking to a real person? Are you talking to an AI chatbot? Are you emailing? Are you filing support tickets? Things like that. Just knowing how that process works if you do run into any issues to kind of help gauge on how long things like that can possibly take. And then another good one to kind of think about is what other people or programs in your industry are using that platform. That can kind of help you get a baseline on some good ways that you're able to use it and just see how other people in your industry are running their programs as well. So, kind of taking this list of questions here, we have made a little checklist for you. You can use this to evaluate your current tools or program. And if you are looking at changing or looking at other tools, this is a great checklist to kind of go through and kind of check off and see if it meets all of your needs and everything that you are wanting in a platform. And thank you guys for attending our webinar today.
Thank you, guys.